The full synthetic myth. How the oil industry is legally stealing from your wallet. There's a number that should make every car owner stop and think. $30 billion. That is what American drivers spend every single year on motor oil. And buried inside that number is one of the most profitable deceptions the automotive industry has ever pulled off. Not in some back alley, not in the dark web, not through shell companies or forged paperwork. Right there on the shelf. Right there on the bottle. Right there in plain English under fluorescent store lighting while you are standing in the auto parts aisle trying to do right by your engine. Here's the part that should genuinely disturb you. The phrase, full synthetic. 3 syllables, 2 words, 0 legal definition. No federal agency enforces it, no independent laboratory verifies it before a product earns the right to print it. No government body audits the base oil inside the bottle before it ships to the warehouse, gets loaded onto a truck, and ends up in your hands. The Federal Trade Commission does not regulate it, the EPA does not touch it. The API, the American Petroleum Institute, issues certification badges based on performance benchmarks, but it does not mandate that full synthetic actually means chemically synthesized oil. What that means in practice is devastatingly simple. Any oil company with a label printer and a distribution deal can put the words full synthetic on a bottle of highly refined crude oil derivative and face absolutely 0 legal consequences. Not a fine, not a recall, not a cease and desist letter, nothing. And the industry has known this for over 2 decades. What you're about to read is not a conspiracy theory. It is not a fringe position held by amateur mechanics on internet forums. Every claim here is documented, sourced from MSDS sheets, federal court records, class action filings, industry classification standards, and independent laboratory testing data. What you're about to discover is that the motor oil industry has constructed an elaborate, expensive, and breathtakingly effective system of misdirection. And the engine, sitting under your hood right now, may be paying the price for it. If you want the truth about what is actually going inside your engine and your wallet, subscribe right now. The investigations we have coming will shock you, save you money, and change how you walk down that auto parts aisle forever. Let us get into it. Brand number 1, Castrol Edge. To understand the full scope of what is happening in the motor oil market today, you have to go back to 1999. That is the year the entire loophole was born. And Castrol did not just stumble through it. Castrol built the door, installed the hinges, and handed out copies of the key to every competitor watching. Here's the backstory. Mobil, one of the few oil companies at the time actually producing genuine PAO-based synthetic motor oil, filed suit against Castrol for marketing its hydrocracked Group 3 mineral-derived oil as synthetic. Mobil's argument was straightforward and technically accurate. Group 3. Base oil is produced by putting crude oil through an intense refining process called hydrocracking. It is not built from scratch in a laboratory. It is not engineered molecule by molecule from non-petroleum feedstocks. It is, chemically speaking, a highly processed version of the same crude oil that comes out of the ground. Calling it synthetic, Mobil argued, was misleading consumers, who were paying premium prices under the assumption they were getting a fundamentally different product. The National Advertising Division sided with Castrol, not because Group 3 oil is chemically synthetic in any meaningful scientific sense, not because the distinction between refined crude and laboratory-engineered polyalpha olefin is imaginary. The NAD sided with Castrol for one reason and one reason only, because no enforceable legal definition of the word synthetic existed in the context of motor oil. If the word has no legal meaning, it cannot be misused. And from that moment forward, every oil company on Earth with a Group 3 product and a premium ambition had the green light to do exactly what Castrol did. Castrol did not respond to that ruling by improving its product. It responded by scaling its marketing budget. Now pull up the MSDS, Material Safety Data Sheet, for Castrol Edge. These documents are not marketing materials. They are technical disclosures required by occupational health and safety regulations, and oil companies cannot lie on them the way they can on a label. Castrol Edge's own MSDS lists its base oil content as 80 to 85% highly refined mineral base oil. Group 3, not Group 4 PAO, not Group Vi ester. Highly refined mineral oil, which is exactly the category Mobil argued was not synthetic back in 1999. Now let us talk about what that actually means for your engine, because this is where the chemistry becomes impossible to ignore. The viscosity index of a base oil is a measurement of how dramatically that oil's thickness changes as temperature fluctuates. The higher the viscosity index, the more stable and consistent the oil remains, whether your engine is cold at startup or screaming hot after 30 minutes on the highway. Group 3 hydrocracked oil achieves a viscosity index of roughly 120 to 130. That is genuinely impressive for a mineral-derived product. It is not accidental. Decades of refining technology went into achieving that number. But true PAO, polyalpha olefin group of 4 synthetic base oil, achieves a viscosity index of 130 to 150 and higher. That gap, which sounds small as a raw number, translates into measurable real-world differences in exactly the conditions Castrol Edge's marketing claims it was engineered to handle. Turbocharged engines running boost pressure and elevated thermal loads, track use, extended highway driving in extreme heat. Cold starts at negative temperatures, where the oil needs to circulate almost instantly to prevent dry startup wear. These are the exact situations where the ceiling of Group 3 base oil becomes a ceiling, and the floor of PAO becomes an advantage. Castrol Edge retails between $11 and $13 per quart depending on retailer and viscosity grade. That is the same price bracket as Mobil 1, which is a genuine PAO formulation. You are paying PAO prices for a Group 3 product and receiving the legal protection of an unregulated label in exchange. Castrol Edge did not just exploit the loophole, it invented the template that the entire industry copied. Every brand that follows on this list owes a portion of its profit margin to what Castrol established in that 1999 ruling. Brand number 2, Pennzoil Platinum. Pennzoil Platinum launched with one of the most clever origin stories in the history of consumer oil marketing. Made from natural gas, not crude oil, the implication was revolutionary. A motor oil so advanced it bypassed petroleum entirely and started from an entirely different feedstock. That sounds like a leap forward. It sounds like genuine innovation. And in a narrow technical sense, it is not entirely false. Here's what is actually happening inside that bottle. Shell, which acquired Pennzoil and now operates it as part of its lubricants portfolio, developed a proprietary process called gas-to-liquid technology, or GTL. The process takes natural gas and converts it chemically into a base oil. The output is genuinely cleaner and more compositionally consistent than standard hydrocracked Group 3 crude-derived base oil. There are fewer impurities. The molecular structure is more uniform. Shell markets this under the Pure Plus Technology brand name, and it is a real differentiator within the Group 3 tier. The critical word there is within. By the classification standards used by most of the lubrication engineering industry, including the American Petroleum Institute's own base oil categorization system, GTL-derived base oil falls into a category sometimes informally called Group 3 Plus. It is better than conventional Group 3. It is not Group PAO. The molecular architecture is different, the thermal performance ceiling is different, the NOAC volatility characteristics, which measure how much oil evaporates at high temperature, directly affecting oil consumption and viscosity stability, are different. Shell has filed patents, published white papers, and spent enormous resources trying to blur that distinction. But the classification exists for a reason, and the reason is chemistry. Now, layer on this, Pennzoil has a documented credibility problem that predates the GTL era by decades. In a 1992 federal case examining motor oil performance claims, 2 of Pennzoil's 3 leading product lines failed the most rigorous viscosity breakdown testing the court applied. This was not a technical footnote, it was a federal finding. And while that case is now over 30 years old, it established a pattern of premium claims outrunning product reality that the current GTL marketing continues. Pennzoil Platinum sits at premium retail pricing, comparable to or exceeding Mobil 1 in many retail environments, on the basis of being different from crude oil, which is technically accurate, while declining to prominently address the fact that it does not reach the performance classification of true PAO synthesis. You're paying for a story about natural gas while receiving a product that the industry's own classification structure places below the tier you believe you purchased. Pennzoil Platinum is a genuinely good Group 3 Plus oil sold at Group 4 prices using Group V implication marketing. The coffee shop analogy is almost too generous. It is specialty drip coffee with a single origin story charging cold brew prices in a city where nobody can taste the difference because the cup never lets you see inside. Brand number 3, Valvoline Advanced. Full synthetic Valvoline is everywhere. Valvoline instant oil change locations handle millions of vehicles annually. The brand recognition is enormous. The implied trust is enormous. And according to a class action lawsuit filed in February of 2026, that trust may have been systematically violated at a scale that is genuinely difficult to process. The lawsuit alleges that Valvoline service centers installed incorrect oil type and viscosity during customer oil changes, not occasionally, not as isolated errors, but as a pattern, causing documented engine damage, measurable decreases in performance and fuel economy, and in many cases, voiding manufacturer warranties that required specific oil specifications. These are customers who walked into a service center, paid for full synthetic, and may have received something fundamentally different. Their engines absorbed the cost. Their warranties absorbed the consequence. Their wallets absorbed the bill for repairs they should never have needed. And that is before you examine what is inside the bottle when everything goes correctly. Valvoline Advanced Full Synthetic is a Group 3 base oil product with an ester additive blend incorporated into the formulation. Valvoline's marketing emphasizes this ester component because ester is a group V chemistry, a genuinely synthetic additive class, and including it allows the marketing language to imply a more sophisticated formulation than a pure group 3 product. The problem is proportionality. The ester component in Valvoline Advanced Full Synthetic is an additive, not a base oil. It represents a fraction of the overall formulation. The foundation, the 80+% of the bottle that determines thermal behavior, oxidation resistance, and viscosity stability, is group 3 hydrocracked mineral derivative. Adding a group Vi ester to a group 3 foundation does not elevate that product to PaO equivalence. What it creates is a better group 3 oil. A meaningfully better one in certain respects. But better group 3 is still group 3, and Valvoline Advanced Full Synthetic is priced directly against Mobil 1, which is built on a true PaO group RV foundation. The price point tells you what they want you to believe you are buying. The MSDS tells you what is actually in the bottle. The class action filing tells you what can happen when the operational side of a volume-driven oil change business loses track of the gap between those two things. Valvoline is selling you the expectation of a custom-tailored garment, handing you something manufactured at volume, and assuring you the fit is close enough that you would never notice unless you took measurements yourself. Most people never take the measurements. Subscribe right now if you have not already. What we have coming on industry-wide oil company deception is going to fundamentally change how you approach every oil purchase for the rest of your vehicle ownership life. Brand number 4, Castrol GTX, Magnatech. Magnatech Intelligent Molecules. It is some of the best automotive copywriting ever produced. It sounds like something developed in a research facility, tested on spacecraft components, reviewed by material scientists with credentials on the wall. The consumer standing in the auto parts aisle reads those words and has a visceral sense of advanced technology flowing into their engine. Those intelligent molecules are clinging to Group 3 hydrocracked base oil. The same origin story as Castrol Edge, the same base oil classification, a different marketing campaign architected from the ground up to redirect your attention away from the one question that actually matters. What is the base oil this product is built on? To be precise about the technology, because accuracy matters here, fluid titanium technology and Magnatech's intelligent molecule description are not fabrications. They reference real additive chemistry. Titanium-based compounds do exist in lubrication formulations, and they do measurably improve certain anti-wear performance metrics under specific conditions. The intelligent molecule concept, referring to additives that bond preferentially to metal surfaces during thermal cycling, describes a legitimate phenomenon. These things are real. They are also 10 to 20% of the bottle. The base oil, the 80 to 90% that determines everything about how that oil performs under sustained heat, how it resists oxidation over time, how it behaves at negative temperatures during cold start, how it maintains viscosity stability over extended drain intervals. That base oil is Group 3, and no additive package, regardless of how sophisticated or how real or how effectively marketed, raises the thermal performance ceiling of the base oil it is dissolved in. The ceiling is set by the base oil. Additives work within that ceiling. They cannot move it. Castrol's marketing genius, and it genuinely is genius from an advertising perspective, is that it makes the additive the story. Magnatech Intelligent Molecules is not a footnote on the label. It is the headline. The base oil classification appears nowhere in the consumer-facing marketing because there is no scenario in which a consumer who understands base oil tiers chooses a Group 3 product at premium pricing. So Castrol ensures that the consumer never reaches that question by filling all available cognitive space with titanium molecules and intelligent chemistry. You are buying the additive story. You're also buying the Group 3 base oil it comes in. One of those things is mentioned prominently on the bottle. The other is disclosed on a technical document you were never encouraged to read. Brand number 5, Quaker State Ultimate Durability, Full Synthetic Quaker State, and Pennzoil. Two names that carry decades of individual brand identity, independent heritage, regional loyalty, and perceived market competition. You might choose one over the other because your father used it, because your mechanic recommends it, because you have had good experiences with one and a vague skepticism of the other, because the bottle looks more trustworthy, because the marketing aligns with something you believe about quality. Shell owns both of them. And after consolidating production under its GTL Group 3 plus processing infrastructure, both Quaker State Ultimate Durability, Full Synthetic, and Pennzoil Platinum are built on functionally the same base oil, sourced from the same production process, classified in the same base oil tier, and distributed through the same supply chain. The bottles are different, the demographics being targeted are different, the advertising budgets are separate, the brand voices are distinct. The oil is the same. This is not a suspicion or an inference drawn from circumstantial evidence. This is documented through Shell's own technical disclosures, cross-referenced production facility sourcing, an independent laboratory analysis that has found no meaningful compositional differentiation between the two products at the base oil level. Shell has essentially created the illusion of a competitive market between two products it sells to itself, manufactures from the same process, and prices at nearly identical premium points side by side on retail shelving. When you stand in that aisle and feel like you're making a considered choice between two competing technologies from two different companies with two different engineering philosophies, you are choosing between two label designs. The decision you believe you're making does not correspond to a real difference in what enters your engine. Shell has manufactured consumer choice as a theater performance where every actor, every set piece, and every prop belongs to the same production company. Two premium oil purchases, one base oil, two markups, one parent company collecting both. Brand number 6, Amalie XL Premium Motor Oil. Everything examined so far operates within a framework that is legal, if profoundly misleading. The classification system is real. The word synthetic has no enforceable definition. The marketing language exploits that gap with precision. None of it, technically, breaks any law. It is deception engineered to stay on the right side of the line. Amalie XL is something categorically different. This is a product where the company's own label contains a disclaimer that, if read by the average consumer before purchase, would make that purchase essentially impossible to justify. Not a vague hedge buried in language about performance characteristics. Not a standard liability limitation. A direct, explicit statement about product unsuitability printed on the same container being sold as premium engine protection. The front of the Amalie XL bottle carries the kind of protective language you expect from a premium motor oil. The product is positioned as serious engine protection for serious applications. Then you locate the fine print. And we are talking about fine print positioned in a location and at a font size that the company's legal team clearly calculated would be read by as few consumers as possible. And you find a disclaimer stating that the product is not suitable for most gasoline-powered automobile engines built after 1930. Read that again. Not suitable for most gasoline-powered automobile engines built after 1930. Every single vehicle on American roads was built after 1930. Every vehicle in production at any manufacturer anywhere in the world was built after 1930. The disclaimer does not carve out a small category of modern high-performance engines or turbocharged applications or vehicles with specific oil spec requirements. It exempts essentially the entire consumer vehicle market from the product's claimed suitability. And if that were not explicit enough, the fine print continues. Use in modern engines may cause unsatisfactory engine performance and equipment harm. Unsatisfactory engine performance and equipment harm? A lawsuit was filed specifically targeting this labeling practice. The product remained in distribution. The front of the bottle continued promising premium protection, while the back of the bottle continued carrying a disclaimer that functionally immunizes the company from any damage claim by any modern vehicle owner who experiences exactly the outcome the disclaimer predicted. The front is the sales pitch. The back is the legal fortress. The consumer who suffers engine damage after using this product has, in the company's legal framing, been warned, in letters they were never expected to find, in language positioned where it would never be read. Amalie XL is not a motor oil with a labeling problem. It is a liability management document that someone decided to put in a quart bottle. Brand number 7. Store brand full synthetic oils, SuperTech. Kirkland signature. House brands sold through mass market retailers at price points that trigger every instinct you have been conditioned to associate with compromised quality. Under $10 a quart for SuperTech. $6 to $8 for Kirkland. In a world where the premium bottles on the shelf beside them are touching $13, the assumption feels automatic. You get what you pay for. Cheap oil equals cheap protection. Simple. Here is the actual situation. SuperTech and Kirkland Signature both carry API, SN, or SP certification. The same performance certification badge found on bottles priced 60 to 80% higher. Both products are formulated on Group 3 base oil, the same base oil tier as Castrol Edge, Valvoline Advanced Full Synthetic, Castrol GTX Magnatech, and the entire Shell Lubricants portfolio of premium branded products. Both legally print full synthetic on the label because full synthetic has no enforceable definition and Group 3 qualifies by precedent. Both deliver performance in standard driving conditions, naturally aspirated engines, normal operating temperatures, manufacturer recommended drain intervals, that is not meaningfully differentiated from the Group 3 products, charging $11 to $13 for an identical base oil classification. Independent NOAC volatility testing, which measures how much oil evaporates under sustained heat, a critical metric for oil consumption and viscosity maintenance, does show Group 3 store brand oils underperforming genuine PAO in high temperature and turbocharged applications. That gap is real. For drivers running turbocharged engines, track use, extended drain intervals, or extreme climate conditions, that gap matters and should influence purchasing decisions. But here's the number that the entire premium Group 3 market depends on you never calculating. That same gap exists between a $7 store brand Group 3 oil and an $11 premium branded Group 3 oil. The gap does not disappear when the price goes from 7 to 11. The NOAC limitations of Group 3 base oil are the same, whether the bottle says SuperTech or Castrol Edge. What changes between $7 and $11 is not the base oil performance ceiling. What changes is the advertising budget that paid for the bottle design, the end cap placement, the television spots, and the racing sponsorship that made you trust the brand without needing to read the MSDS. Every bottle in the Group 3 tier is wearing the same tuxedo at different price points. The store brand arrived in a rideshare. The premium brand arrived in a private car. Neither one brought a better tuxedo. They both have the same MSDS. Brand number 8, Shell Helix Ultra. Over 100 countries, Formula One associations, top-tier pricing, pure plus technology, and prominent placement across every consumer-facing surface. Shell Helix Ultra is the international face of premium motor oil, the product that someone buying a European-spec turbocharged performance vehicle reaches for instinctively because the marketing has been architected to align with exactly that identity. Shell Helix Ultra runs on GTL Group 3 plus base oil, the same processing platform as Pennzoil Platinum, the same chemical classification framework as Quaker State Ultimate Durability Full Synthetic, the same parent company, the same base oil origin story, rebranded for a third distinct consumer demographic with a third distinct premium price point. What Shell has accomplished across its lubricants portfolio is genuinely staggering in its architecture. 3 separate brand identities: Pennzoil for the American premium performance market, Quaker State for heritage loyal domestic users, Shell Helix for the international and European spec performance segment, all running on the same GTL Group 3 Plus platform, all priced at premium levels, all marketed with language that implies Group FU PAO equivalence without ever stating it explicitly, all protected by the same legal framework that has no enforceable definition of synthetic to violate. The reason Helix Ultra deserves particular examination beyond Pennzoil Platinum is the consumer profile it specifically targets. Drivers who purchase Shell Helix Ultra at premium pricing are overwhelmingly doing so because they believe they are protecting a turbocharged or high-specification European-engineered engine with oil that matches the engineering demands of that power plant. These are precisely the applications: sustained elevated heat loads, extended drain intervals, extreme cold start conditions, tight tolerances in modern turbocharger bearing systems, where the measurable gap between Group 3 Plus and genuine PAO Group 4 base oil becomes not a technical abstraction, but a real-world variable with real-world consequences on engine longevity. And here is the number that should crystallize everything about Helix Ultra's market positioning. Mobil 1 Full Synthetic, a genuine PAO Group 4 formulation with a documented, verifiable base oil classification, sits at a comparable or lower retail price point in most markets where Shell Helix Ultra is sold. The consumer who reaches for Helix Ultra because they believe premium pricing equals superior protection could purchase actual PAO-based synthetic oil for the same money or less. They are not choosing between equivalent products at different prices. They are choosing between an inferior base oil tier and a superior one, and paying more for the inferior one because the marketing is better. Shell Helix Ultra is the most expensive wrong answer in the motor oil aisle. What you can do right now, this is not a collection of isolated brand failures or individual cases of rogue marketing departments going too far. What you have just examined is a systemic industry-wide exploitation of a single legal precedent. One ruling from 1999 that left the word synthetic unprotected and unenforceable, that every major oil company with a profit motive and a Group 3 product promptly weaponized and has been monetizing for over 25 years. The mechanism is always the same. The label carries full synthetic. The bottle carries Group 3. The marketing budget ensures you never look past the label. The MSDS exists somewhere you were never encouraged to find. And the price sits at a level that triggers the psychological association between cost and quality that every premium brand depends on as its most reliable conversion tool. Here's the single most useful thing you can do before your next oil change. Search for the product data sheet, sometimes called the product information sheet or technical data sheet, distinct from but related to the MSDS, for whatever oil is currently in your vehicle or on your shopping list. Look specifically in the base oil description section for the words polyalpha olefin, PAO, or Group FU. If those words are present, you have a genuine synthetic base oil. If they are absent, and in the overwhelming majority of premium branded products currently on retail shelves, they will be absent, you are running Group 3 hydrocracked mineral derivative regardless of what the front label says. For standard driving, in a naturally aspirated engine at normal operating temperatures with manufacturer recommended drain intervals, Group 3 oil adequately meets the functional requirements of your engine. It is not catastrophic. It is not dangerous in normal applications. It is not the product you paid for or were led to believe you purchased. For turbocharged applications, for extended drain intervals beyond manufacturer specification, for extreme hot or cold climate operation, or for any high-performance use case, Group 3 oil's limitations are not marketing copy. They are chemistry. And chemistry does not negotiate with the label on the bottle. Now you know what to look for. Now you know what the label does not tell you. Now you know that the gap between full synthetic and full synthetic depends entirely on 3 letters that never appear in the marketing. P-A-O. Subscribe. If you want to keep knowing things, the industry is spending billions of dollars making sure you never find out.